They were about to put handcuffs on an innocent woman, and the only person who could stop it was pretending to be unconscious. Red and blue lights pulsed against marble floors. Officers crowded the lobby. Residents lined the walls like witnesses at a trial nobody asked for. And Naru Kwok lay completely still on that stretcher, eyes closed, breathing slow, listening. His head of security stepped forward, raised one finger and pointed it directly at Rebecca. "Search her. She was the last one in his office." The room shifted. You could feel it, that invisible thing that happens when a crowd decides something before a single fact is confirmed. Her uniform, her face, her cleaning cart. That was all the evidence some people needed. A vial was pulled from the trash chute right beside it. Gasps spread like fire through the lobby. Someone whispered something cruel. Someone else was already recording. And Naru still hadn't moved. Rebecca's hands were shaking, her eyes were wet, but she didn't run, she didn't scream. She just whispered, "He wasn't asleep." Her voice cracked. "He was testing me." Officers stepped closer. The cuffs came out. And the man who held her fate in his hands lay there in silence, choosing every second whether to let her fall. What kind of person does that? What kind of person watches someone drown just to see if they'll fight? You're about to find out exactly who Naru Kwok is, and why Rebecca was the only person in that building ready for him. But before we stay in that lobby, we need to go back, because you can't understand what Rebecca did until you understand who Rebecca is. Harlem, early morning, the kind of quiet that only exists before the city wakes up. Sunlight just starting to crawl over the brownstones, and Rebecca standing in her small studio apartment, ironing her uniform like it was a ritual. Every crease, every collar, deliberate. Like the uniform wasn't just clothing, it was armor. She paused for a second, touched something at her neck, a gold locket, small, worn at the edges. She opened it. Inside, a photo so tiny you'd almost miss it. A man in military uniform, strong jaw, proud eyes. Her father, gone now, but clearly never far. She closed it gently, held it for just a moment longer than necessary. "Okay, Rebecca, let's go." Then her phone buzzed. Voicemail. Her younger brother, calling from Houston. "Hey sis, I know you said not to stress you, but the tuition deadline is coming up and I don't know, call me back." She stared at the phone. Didn't call back, just set it face down on the counter, took a breath. And that's when your eyes would catch it, sitting right there on her kitchen counter, between her keys and her lip balm, a small pharmacy bottle, label facing up. Antidote for emergency exposure. Now, hold on. Why does a maid carry antidote medication to work? She didn't hesitate, didn't explain it to herself, just tucked it into her purse, quiet, practiced, like it was as normal as chapstick. Honey, that is not normal. She grabbed her notebook next. Korean phrases, written by hand, pages and pages of them. She flipped to the very last page, one sentence, underlined twice. "Trust is earned when no one is watching." She stared at it, then closed the notebook. Before she left, she stood at her window, looked across the street at Naru's building, that tower of glass and power and wealth. Just watched it, like she was preparing for something nobody else could see coming. Stay with me. Every single detail in this story matters. Now, while Rebecca was memorizing Korean phrases in Harlem, the man she was about to face was sitting 40 floors up in the dark, studying her. Naru Kwok's office. Wood panels, dim lighting, the kind of silence that feels expensive. And behind his chair, an open safe. Stacks of Korean won bundled tight, multiple passports, different names, different countries. And sitting right there between them, a pistol. Just resting there, casual, like a pen holder. This man was not a regular employer. Let's just establish that right now. He wasn't reading emails, he wasn't taking calls, he was staring at a file on his desk. Thick, worn at the edges, stamped across the front in red ink. Internal betrayal, soul division. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He already knew every page by heart. Because 2 years ago, the person who tried to poison Naru Kwok wasn't an enemy. It was someone he trusted. A lieutenant. Someone he'd eaten with, traveled with, protected. The poison was in his tea. He caught it just in time, barely. Spent 3 days in a private medical facility in Seoul. No hospital report, no police. Because in Naru's world, weakness is information, and information gets people killed. He survived. But something else didn't. His ability to trust anyone, ever again. Not a single soul, he told himself from that hospital bed, and he meant it. So now, he watched everyone. He reached over, pulled up the security footage on his monitor, started scrolling, past the usual, deliveries, residents, staff. Then he paused. Rebecca. Footage from 3 days ago, lobby level. She's pushing her cleaning cart, and an elderly man drops his groceries near the elevator. She doesn't hesitate, doesn't look around to see if anyone's watching, just kneels down, helps him pick everything up, fixes the man's bag, says something that makes him laugh, then goes right back to work. Naru leaned back slowly, watched it again. Then he said it, quietly, almost to himself. Kindness is either weakness, he tilted his head, or strategy. He couldn't tell which one it was with her, and that bothered him more than he wanted to admit. So he picked up his phone, called his chemist, spoke low, direct. Put something in my tea tomorrow. Harmless, just enough to simulate symptoms. A pause on the other end. Sir, are you sure? Today we see what she really is. He hung up, leaned forward, looked back at the frozen image of Rebecca on that screen. This man was about to fake being poisoned in a building full of people with his own safe wide open behind him just to test one woman's character. Sir, that is unhinged behavior, but okay, because here's the terrifying part. He'd done riskier things for less. The next part is where everything goes wrong, fast, and it all starts with a smell Rebecca was never supposed to notice. The next morning came fast. Rebecca arrived at work like always. Uniform pressed, lock it on, notebook in her bag. She had no idea what was already in motion. She was working the elevator corridor outside Naru's office, mopping. Quiet. Minding every inch of her business. Then the doors opened, and Naru stepped out. Something was off. She noticed it immediately, the way he was walking. Too slow, one hand trailing the wall like he needed it. His forehead, damp. She slowed her mop. That's sweat. That's a lot of sweat. His hands. She clocked his hands next. Trembling. Not dramatically. Not like a movie, just this subtle, unsettling shake that you'd only notice if you were paying attention. Rebecca was always paying attention. And then she smelled it. Faint, almost nothing, but it was there. Almonds. Sweet. Bitter. Wrong. Her body reacted before her brain finished the sentence. She dropped the mop. It clattered against the floor, and she was already moving. Mr. Kwok! She grabbed his shoulders, steadied him. Now, here's where everything falls apart. Because at that exact moment, 2 security guards turned the corner. And what did they see? They saw the maid grabbing their boss. They didn't see the trembling, didn't smell the almonds, didn't catch the way his knees were already giving. They just saw her hands on him. Then Naru collapsed. Not slow, not graceful, just down. Rebecca caught him best she could, lowered him, knelt beside him on that corridor floor. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck. Pulse. There. Weak, but there. She leaned close, and in a voice so low it was barely sound, she whispered in Korean, 당신은 의식이 없는 애 아니잖아. You're not unconscious. The corridor went absolutely still. And then, the tiniest thing, his eyelids flickered. Just once, just barely. But she felt it. She knew. Before she could do anything else, boots, rushing, shouting. Security stormed in from both ends. "Step away from him now." She stood up fast, hands raised. And that's when it happened. Her purse, the strap caught, swung sideways, and the pharmacy bottle tumbled out, skidded across the floor, landed face up right next to Naru's body. Antidote for emergency exposure. One guard stared at it, looked at Rebecca, then looked back at it. You could see the exact moment the wrong conclusion locked into place behind his eyes. She had antidote on her, at work, and their boss just collapsed right in front of her. The thing she brought to save him now looked like the thing that proved she'd poisoned him. Oh, this is so unfair, it physically hurts. And Naru still hadn't opened his eyes.
They didn't waste time. Within minutes, Rebecca was inside the penthouse security control room, cold, fluorescent, the kind of room designed to make you feel small. 4 screens on the wall, cameras covering every inch of that building, and the security chief already on the phone. "Yes, possible poisoning attempt, suspect in custody. We need units at the building now." He said suspect like it was already a verdict. Rebecca stood there, hands at her sides, trying to keep her breathing steady. Stay calm, think. The chief hung up, turned to his guy at the monitor. "Pull the footage." They pulled it, rewound to the corridor, hit play, and Rebecca watched as they watched it. There she was, mopping, normal. Then they paused it. Right there, the exact frame where she drops the mop and moves toward Naru. "There," the chief said. She moves toward him, he collapses. Antidote found on her person. Rebecca's mouth opened. "That's not— You cut it. You cut the part before. He was already— Ma'am," the chief didn't even look at her. "We're reviewing the footage, not you." She looked at the screen. They had trimmed it deliberately. The part where Naru was already sweating, already trembling, already failing before she even touched him, gone. What remained told a completely different story, and they knew exactly what they were doing. 2 officers arrived fast, and the interrogation started. Not gentle, not procedural, aggressive. "How long have you worked here?" 8 months. "You have access to his office?" "Only to clean, during scheduled—" "You carry antidote medication to work." Silence. Then the line that hit different. The officer leaned forward. "You expect us to believe you just carry antidotes around Manhattan?" The room got heavier. Rebecca felt it. That specific weight, the kind that has nothing to do with evidence and everything to do with who you are, how you look, what uniform you're wearing. She'd felt it before, but this time she didn't look down. She looked directly at the camera in the corner of the room, and something clicked. He's watching. Not just the officers, not just the chief. Naru. He had cameras everywhere. He'd been studying her for weeks. This whole thing was still the test. Her voice came out shaking, but the words were steady. "If I wanted him dead," she swallowed, "I wouldn't have checked his pulse." Nobody responded. The chief just wrote something down. An officer exchanged a look with his partner. And somewhere, on a monitor nobody in that room could see, a man in a stretcher lay completely still, eyes closed, hearing every word, still not moving. This man really said, "Let me see how far this goes," and went all the way. They walked her through the lobby. Not quietly, not privately. Through the main lobby, during peak morning hours, in her uniform, with officers on both sides. And everybody saw. The marble floors, the high ceilings, the residents in their expensive coats holding their expensive coffee. All of them stopping, staring. Rebecca kept her eyes forward, but she could hear them. "I always said they needed stricter background checks in this building. She had access to his whole floor. You just never know." You just never know. She heard that one clearly. Someone in the back had their phone up, already live streaming, little red dot pointed right at her face. No trial, no facts, just content.
The stretcher was near the main doors now, EMTs working around Naru, oxygen mask on, vitals monitor beeping steady. And that's when the rookie EMT frowned. Young guy, couldn't have been more than his second year. He leaned over the monitor, checked it again, looked at his partner. Hey, his vitals are too stable. His partner glanced over. For that level of toxin exposure, his heart rate should be dropping, blood pressure crashing. This man looks like he's... He didn't finish the sentence. Rebecca heard it, every word. Something rose up in her chest. That thing that comes when you've been quiet too long, been careful too long, been patient through things that don't deserve patience. She stepped forward. Officers grabbed her arms. She didn't fight them. She just raised her voice. He's conscious. The lobby went quiet. He can hear every single thing you're saying. Full silence now. Even the live stream guy lowered his phone slightly, involuntarily. Every eye moved to Naru. He didn't move. Oxygen mask, eyes closed, completely, infuriatingly still. The security chief let out a short laugh, looked at the officers. Desperation, he said, like she was embarrassing herself. Some residents nodded, someone murmured agreement, and Rebecca felt something break a little. Not her spirit, something else, some last remaining hope that this would resolve itself fairly. She pulled just enough against the officers to step close to the stretcher. They let her, maybe out of pity, maybe curiosity. She leaned down, face close to his, and in a voice so soft, so private it belonged only to him, she whispered in Korean, "만약 당신이 명분을 증명하려 죽는다면." If you die proving a point. Her voice caught. Who protects your empire? A single tear fell from her eye, landed on the stretcher beside his hand. She didn't wipe it. She just waited. And Naru Kwok lay there with that tear inches from his fingers. And for the first time since this whole thing started, something shifted behind those closed eyes. A decision forming. The EMTs were ready to load him into the ambulance. Doors open, stretcher rolling, crowd parting. Rebecca was still standing there, wrists together, waiting for the cuffs to close. And then, a hand. Naru's hand, fingers spreading slowly, gripped the side of the stretcher. One EMT froze. The other stepped back. The grip tightened, and Naru Kwok sat up. The lobby didn't gasp all at once. It happened in a wave, starting from the front, rippling all the way back through the marble and the whispers and the live stream and the judgment. Gasp, gasp, gasp. He reached up, pulled the oxygen mask off his face, set it down slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Then he turned his head and looked directly at Rebecca, not at the officers, not at his security team, not at the residents with their phones and their opinions. At her. Just her. The silence that followed was the loudest thing in that building. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. Even the livestream guy just stood there with his mouth open, forgot he was even recording. Then Naru said 2 words. Calm, clear, final. She passed. You could hear the security chief's brain short-circuit in real time. The lead officer looked at his partner. His partner looked at the floor. Naru swung his legs off the stretcher, stood up, fully, steadily, like a man who had not just been wheeled through a lobby in a medical emergency. Because he hadn't. He straightened his jacket, looked around the room slowly, let everybody sit in it for a second. Then he spoke again. If she meant to poison me, a pause, deliberate, I'd already be dead. He let that land. Then he told them everything, quiet, controlled, the way powerful people deliver devastating information. He ordered the test himself, called his chemist personally. The toxin was harmless, self-administered, designed only to simulate symptoms. Every collapse, every tremor, every second on that stretcher, orchestrated by him. The security chief's face went through about 11 different emotions, none of them good. An officer cleared his throat.
Nobody knew what to do with their hands, and Rebecca still hadn't moved. An officer stepped over, removed the cuffs. She looked down at her wrists, rubbed them once, looked up at Naru. He was already looking back. No apology on his face, not exactly, but something else, something that looked almost like respect. The crowd that had whispered about background checks, about you just never know, quietly found reasons to look at their shoes. Funny how fast the energy shifts when the facts show up late. But here's the thing. Naru wasn't done. Not even close.
He didn't celebrate in the lobby, didn't make a speech, didn't comfort anyone. He just turned to his security team and said 2 words, "Briefing room," and walked. Nobody questioned it. They followed, because when Naru Kwok uses that voice, you don't ask questions, you just move. Rebecca was brought in too. The room was small, round table, no windows, the kind of space designed for hard conversations. Naru sat at the head, jacket still on, completely composed. His security team lined up across from him, the chief still trying to arrange his face into something that looked like confidence. It wasn't working. Naru opened a laptop, turned it to face the room. "This is the footage you presented to police." He hit play. They watched it. Rebecca grabbing Naru's shoulders, him collapsing, antidote bottle falling. He let it finish. Then he hit play on a second file. This is the full footage. Same corridor, but earlier, Naru stepping off the elevator, already sweating, already trembling, already failing. Rebecca standing far away, watching, concerned, before she ever moved toward him. The room was very quiet. "You cut 47 seconds, Naru said. Not a question. The chief opened his mouth. "Sir, we were just trying to—" "You were trying to build a case." Naru's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. Against someone you decided was guilty before you reviewed a single frame. Silence. He leaned forward slightly. "She smelled the toxin before any of your team noticed anything was wrong. She checked my pulse. She whispered in Korean, a language she taught herself, to make sure I was breathing." He looked at the chief directly. "And your response was to edit footage, call the police, and walk her through the main lobby in front of cameras." The chief said nothing. Smart, finally. "You're finished," Naru said, simply. "Clear your desk today." He turned to the officer beside him. "Legal will be in contact regarding the false arrest. If anyone in this room wants to test how serious I am, please, give me a reason." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed wrong. Then he turned to Rebecca, who had been standing straight this whole time, hands folded, quiet. He looked at her for a moment. "You saw through me," he said. Not accusatory, almost wondering, like he still couldn't fully explain it. Rebecca met his eyes. "You wanted loyalty," she said. A beat, not fear. Something moved across Naru's face, subtle but real. He nodded, once, slowly, like she'd just said the one thing in 20 years of running an empire built on suspicion that nobody had ever gotten right before. The room felt different after that, smaller, more human. But the story wasn't over, because what Naru said next, nobody in that room expected. Not even Rebecca. They ended up on the rooftop. Just the two of them, Manhattan spread out below like it owed them something. Naru spoke first. "I have a position, personal risk analyst, someone who reads people, situations, before they become problems." He paused. "You already do it naturally." Rebecca didn't answer immediately. She looked out at the skyline, thinking about Harlem, her brother's voicemail, the ironing board at sunrise. Then Naru reached into his jacket. Her antidote bottle. He held it out. "You prepared for my betrayal before I did." She took it slowly. Then she reached back, untied her apron, and folded it, neatly, respectfully, set it on the ledge. But the locket stayed right where it always was, close to her heart. Weeks later, she walked through that lobby again. Same marble, same building, same space where she stood in handcuffs while people filmed her face. But this time, residents nodded, doormen straightened, someone held the elevator. The room hadn't changed. She had claimed it back. Trust isn't proven when someone is watching, it's proven when someone doubts you. Here's the thing. Rebecca didn't survive that day because she was loud. She survived because she was prepared, principled, and she didn't let other people's doubt become her identity. Someone in your life is being judged right now before they get a chance to speak. Maybe that someone is you. If this story sat with you, don't let it sit quietly. Share this video with someone who's ever been accused before they were heard. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story, and comment one word, just one, that describes Rebecca. Because silence protects power, but you hitting that share button, that protects people.